Not every chosen woman shines in a classroom the way the system expects her to. Some were labeled lazy, slow, or unmotivated. Teachers couldn't understand them. Parents worried. Classmates mocked them. Yet what looked like failure was actually misalignment. School rewards memorization, obedience, and uniform thinking, but chosen women are wired for depth, intuition, and vision. They don't absorb life in neat rows of chalk and notebooks. They feel it. They question it. They wrestle with it in silence. Many chosen women carried worlds inside them while sitting in classrooms that asked them to recite, not create. Their minds wandered, not because they were empty, but because they were full. They were watching life, reading people, sensing danger, dreaming futures, and feeling emotions no textbook could explain. So they were called lazy, but laziness was never the truth. It was simply the easiest label society could place on a soul it could not measure. Their minds were too big for small systems. Chosen women often possess minds that operate on dimensions far beyond the rigid frameworks of conventional education systems. Their thinking is not merely linear, it is multidimensional, interconnected, and symbolic. While traditional classrooms measure intelligence through the ability to memorize facts, regurgitate answers, and follow step-by-step instructions, these women often approach knowledge like a vast network of ideas and possibilities. They see the patterns in numbers, the narratives behind historical events, the metaphors in literature, and the principles that govern the universe in seemingly simple subjects. To their teachers, they may appear distracted, inattentive, or even unmotivated. A child, staring out the window, lost in thought, may actually be mapping the stars of future possibilities in her mind. The formulae on the blackboard may not seem immediately relevant, but she is mentally running simulations of social dynamics, alternative histories, or innovative solutions for problems yet to arise. This depth of thought is difficult to quantify and even harder for rigid systems to accommodate. School is designed for uniformity. It demands a fixed pace and standard output, but the minds of chosen women refuse to shrink to fit these boxes. They cannot be confined to a single track or measured by a single metric. Their intellectual hunger is insatiable, reaching for meaning rather than grades. They ask questions that seem inconvenient or irrelevant to a syllabus, but are profoundly relevant to understanding life, purpose, and the human condition. Why memorize the periodic table if you do not yet understand the underlying forces that govern the physical and emotional worlds? Why repeat algorithms if you are trying to unravel patterns of thought and behavior that no textbook can capture? Their intelligence is anticipatory, forward-looking, and sometimes abstract. It is the kind of intelligence that will later invent new technologies, create healing systems, and inspire movements. What seems like distraction in the classroom is actually a form of mental expansion. Their attention is not absent, it is simply elsewhere, working on levels invisible to those evaluating them by conventional means. They are thinking in networks, in probabilities, in possibilities that cannot be confined to a page or a test. Their minds are preoccupied with what could be instead of what is required now, and this divergence from the norm often makes educators uneasy. The classroom becomes a restrictive environment, and any attempt to force them into uniformity is met with quiet resistance. Yet this resistance is not rebellion in the conventional sense, it is the soul asserting itself. Their intelligence, vision, and foresight will eventually reveal itself in ways that the rigid school system cannot measure. While peers chase grades, they chase understanding, connection, and insight. The world outside will later provide them with platforms and opportunities where their minds will no longer need to fit into small boxes. They will be free to operate on the scale for which they were always designed. To misunderstand these women as distracted or lazy is to fail to recognize the extraordinary complexity of thought that cannot be standardized. 2. They learned through feeling, not repetition. For chosen women, learning is an embodied process. Knowledge is absorbed through emotion, intuition, and lived experience, rather than rote repetition. The traditional school model is designed to measure memory, to reward the mechanical reproduction of information, and to quantify intelligence in standardized ways. However, for those whose inner compass is tuned to a more holistic frequency, this system is inherently misaligned. These women sense patterns, absorb energy, and interpret the world with a sensitivity that exceeds the boundaries of formulaic education. When subjected to repetitive drills or arbitrary exercises devoid of context or purpose, their engagement does not falter because they lack ability. It falters because the mode of instruction does not resonate with the architecture of their mind. They learn by observing, feeling, and connecting. For example, when studying history, they are not merely memorizing dates and battles. They are feeling the struggles, ambitions, and triumphs of those who lived through them. When analyzing literature, they are experiencing the emotional weight of characters' choices, the underlying philosophies, and the unspoken tensions in each narrative. Mathematics for them is not just calculation, it is an exploration of balance, symmetry, and relational dynamics. This kind of learning requires freedom, reflection, and depth. Repetition alone cannot impart it, because understanding emerges from connection rather than rote input. Their energy reacts to meaning. When an exercise feels hollow or disconnected from a larger truth, their attention diminishes not because they are incapable, but because the soul refuses to participate in mechanical activity without purpose. Many chosen women, especially those with heightened sensitivity or intuitive faculties, internalize information through their emotional and sensory channels. A lesson in biology might be understood not only through diagrams and definitions, but also through sensing the interconnectedness of life and empathizing with the experiences of living creatures. These processes cannot be tested with a standardized quiz. They can only be observed in the depth of insight they manifest later in life. When constrained by conventional methods, their intelligence appears dormant, but in reality it is simmering beneath the surface, gathering coherence and wisdom in its own rhythm. They are adept at translating experience into knowledge, lessons into strategy, and emotion into insight. Life becomes their primary classroom, and intuition their primary teacher. While peers may achieve high grades through repetition, chosen women are cultivating skills, insights, and understanding that will eventually surpass what standardized assessments can ever measure. Their minds are architects, their hearts are guides, and their souls are the ultimate curriculum designers. The limitations imposed by traditional schooling may momentarily obscure their brilliance, but this obscurity is temporary. It is merely a protective phase as their learning adapts to methods aligned with the true nature of their consciousness. 3. Trauma interrupted their focus. Many chosen women carry with them an invisible burden that conventional observers often fail to notice: the weight of trauma. Childhood and adolescence, periods ostensibly meant for growth, learning, and exploration, can instead be fraught with experiences of neglect, rejection, or disproportionate responsibility. When a child must navigate emotional instability, financial insecurity, or familial dysfunction, their mind is often preoccupied with survival. The conventional markers of academic success, homework, tests, classroom participation, become secondary to the urgent work of protecting oneself and loved ones, managing emotional labor, and compensating for systemic gaps in care and support. Teachers may interpret their unfinished assignments as laziness, their lack of participation as disinterest, and their quiet demeanor as disengagement. What they fail to perceive is that these children are working constantly, not in the classroom, but in the private theater of experience, processing trauma, maintaining fragile balances, and developing resilience. Trauma disrupts concentration, memory, and the ability to follow rigid instructions, but it also fosters profound depth of understanding, empathy, and insight that standard measures cannot capture. These women are acutely aware of human suffering, power dynamics, and social nuance, often out of necessity. While peers may be preoccupied with competition or grades, they are absorbing lessons about loyalty, endurance, and the fragility of life. Emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and the capacity to navigate complex social and familial networks are learned in this crucible, far exceeding what classrooms offer. The struggle is not with intellect, it is with circumstance. Their focus may appear fragmented, but it is actually directed toward priorities that conventional schooling cannot measure: emotional survival, interpersonal strategy, and the preservation of self and others. As they grow, these women often emerge with an extraordinary capacity for leadership, empathy, and insight, precisely because trauma forced them to engage with life on a deeper, more nuanced level. The challenges that once hindered their academic performance ultimately become catalysts for profound wisdom. While schools labeled them as underperforming or inattentive, life would later reward the very skills that could not be measured by tests. Patience, endurance, strategic observation, and emotional acuity become their tools. Teachers may not recognize it, but their education has been in life itself, an education far more expansive, enduring, and transformative than any classroom could provide. Their spirit is tested, refined, and strengthened in ways unseen, preparing them for roles and responsibilities that conventional schooling cannot anticipate. 4. They were observers, not participants. Chosen women often approach life with a quiet attentiveness that can be easily misunderstood. While the classroom culture rewards assertive participation, verbal responses, and outward display of engagement, these women prioritize observation. They are deeply attuned to human behavior, group dynamics, and social hierarchies. By sitting quietly, they are not disinterested. They are decoding complex systems of interaction, predicting outcomes, and discerning unspoken truths. In the moment, this appears passive. They do not raise their hands to answer questions, not because they lack knowledge, but because their focus is on the broader context, the way power manifests between teacher and student, how peers influence one another, or how social norms shape decision-making. Their learning is strategic, not reactive. This mode of engagement cultivates a form of intelligence that transcends academic performance. Understanding human nature, learning the subtleties of influence, and navigating social structures are competencies that classroom grades cannot quantify. While other students compete for attention or accolades, chosen women are quietly absorbing, integrating, and preparing for situations where these insights will prove invaluable. Their awareness is multi-layered. They perceive not only the immediate lesson, but the motivations behind the lesson, the relational dynamics in play, and the long-term implications of every interaction. Such observational skill is often invisible to authority figures who equate knowledge with vocal participation or quantifiable output. Yet in reality, these women are constructing a cognitive map of social and moral terrain, a map that will serve them throughout life. When later entering leadership, entrepreneurial, or creative roles, they demonstrate uncanny foresight, empathy, and tactical awareness, all developed during years of silent observation. Being an observer does not diminish capability, it enhances wisdom. It allows them to choose their moments carefully, to act with precision, and to understand consequences before taking steps. This cultivated awareness positions them to thrive in complex, real-world environments where impulsive action or superficial understanding could prove disastrous. Their patience, perception, and discernment are outcomes of long periods of reflective observation. Thus, what schools misinterpret as passivity is, in truth, a powerful method of engagement, a silent accumulation of knowledge, strategy, and insight. They are learning more than lessons. They are learning life itself. 5. They rejected authority that felt empty. Chosen women have an innate sensitivity to authenticity and integrity. They do not challenge authority merely for the sake of rebellion. They respond instinctively to emptiness, hypocrisy, or illogical control. When teachers, mentors, or leaders enforce rules without reason or act with dishonesty, these women's spirits resist, not outwardly in defiance, but internally in quiet withdrawal. Compliance without conviction feels like a violation of their higher understanding. They respect truth, competence, and wisdom, not titles or superficial markers of power. Traditional schooling often emphasizes obedience, conformity, and performance over comprehension and moral alignment. For a chosen woman, this can feel suffocating. When confronted with empty authority, her engagement diminishes, not because she lacks ambition or talent, but because her soul recognizes the futility of surrendering energy to hollow systems. This withdrawal is often misread as laziness or apathy by educators, who cannot see beyond conventional metrics of compliance. In truth, it is a profound act of discernment, a refusal to invest spiritual and intellectual energy where it cannot yield meaningful growth. By rejecting authority that lacks substance, chosen women cultivate independence, self-trust, and moral clarity. They learn to evaluate ideas, people, and systems critically, fostering autonomy and strategic thinking. In life beyond school, this discernment becomes a remarkable asset. They are less likely to be manipulated, more capable of navigating complex organizations, and more likely to align themselves with purpose-driven ventures. What appears as resistance in youth is actually preparation for leadership, integrity, and self-sovereignty in adulthood. By refusing to conform blindly, they protect their creativity, intelligence, and potential. They do not require validation from hollow systems. Instead, they cultivate validation internally, from truth, insight, and alignment with higher principles. This early rejection of empty authority teaches them to distinguish between superficial power and genuine influence, a skill far more critical than academic achievement alone. Their silent rebellion becomes the foundation for a life led with autonomy, wisdom, and deliberate action. Their creativity was misinterpreted as daydreaming. Chosen women often operate on a plane where imagination is not just a pastime. It is a fundamental mode of cognition, an essential part of how they process and interact with the world. Their minds are factories of ideas, constructing intricate inner landscapes, conceptual frameworks, and future possibilities that far exceed the scope of conventional curriculum. While their peers may be focused on copying notes, completing assignments, or absorbing the immediate content of lectures, chosen women are mentally sculpting visions of worlds that do not yet exist. This process, inherently abstract and introspective, can easily be misread by teachers or authority figures as mere daydreaming or inattentiveness. When a student stares out the window, pensively tracing invisible lines in the air, they are not checking out. They are synthesizing patterns of thought, rehearsing strategies for complex problems, or exploring philosophical, artistic, or scientific possibilities. Their creativity is often interwoven with a deep understanding of human behavior, natural systems, and the interplay of cause and effect in both social and material domains. Unlike rote learning, this imaginative activity is generative, producing original concepts and insights that may not have immediate application within the classroom, but will later reveal profound utility in life, leadership, and innovation. The act of daydreaming is, in truth, a form of internal experimentation. They are running simulations of outcomes, evaluating scenarios, and experimenting with ideas that the rigid structures of school cannot accommodate. A science project may be approached not only through the experiment itself, but through mental exploration of the ethical, social, and creative ramifications of the findings. A literature assignment is analyzed not merely for comprehension, but for the moral, philosophical, and emotional resonance behind the words. Their imagination is a laboratory where theory meets intuition, intellect meets emotion, and knowledge meets insight. Teachers, evaluating only visible output, cannot perceive the invisible work happening inside these young minds. When such women are chastised for not paying attention or zoning out, the punishment is for something that is actually a strength, the cultivation of creativity, foresight, and internal problem-solving. Over time, these inner constructs evolve into tangible contributions, art, inventions, strategies, or social innovations that influence the world in ways conventional intelligence alone cannot. Their capacity to visualize, innovate, and reimagine reality positions them as leaders, inventors, and creators in spheres where lateral thinking and originality are more valuable than memorization. What was once misinterpreted as distraction in classrooms becomes the source of their power. Creativity, particularly when coupled with sensitivity and intuition, is often invisible until it manifests externally. Those who dismissed it as daydreaming fail to understand the profound cognitive and emotional labor involved. By nurturing these inner worlds quietly, chosen women prepare themselves to enact change in ways unseen by peers who were praised for conformity and obedience. The school system, in labeling this behavior as inattentiveness, is blind to the generative capacity that will one day define leadership, vision, and genius. 7. They were energy sensitive in harsh environments. Chosen women are inherently attuned to the subtle currents of energy around them. Unlike typical students who may focus purely on tasks or instructions, these women sense emotional, social, and environmental vibrations with heightened intensity. Classrooms, especially those crowded and chaotic, can be overwhelming. Noise, conflict, competition, and pressure are not mere background. They are intrusive forces that disrupt concentration and strain the psyche. While a teacher may perceive disengagement or lethargy, what is actually occurring is a protective shutdown. Their minds instinctively shield themselves from harmful or overwhelming energies, conserving mental and emotional resources. This is not laziness, it is self-preservation. Energy sensitivity allows them to detect tension, dishonesty, jealousy, or aggression in subtle forms, often long before others notice it. They absorb the emotional atmosphere, process it, and sometimes internalize it, which can make conventional learning difficult in environments that lack harmony or compassion. Schools, by their very design, rarely account for this sensitivity, expecting uniform participation and output regardless of the emotional or social conditions. Yet, the chosen woman's ability to read energy is a rare gift that enables extraordinary discernment, empathy, and strategic insight later in life. Her apparent withdrawal is a conscious adaptation, a way to navigate hostile or draining environments without sacrificing inner equilibrium. Sensitivity to energy is also a source of wisdom. By observing how people react to stress, competition, and authority, chosen women accumulate knowledge about human nature that is far more nuanced than academic instruction can provide. They learn to gauge intentions, anticipate conflict, and understand social hierarchies intuitively. While the classroom measures memorization, tests, and obedience, these women are mastering emotional intelligence, resilience, and adaptive strategy. Their presence may be quiet, but it is deeply informed by a complex understanding of invisible forces that shape behavior. Life will later validate this sensitivity as they apply it to leadership, mentorship, negotiation, and personal relationships. The world outside the classroom rewards energy attunement far more than compliance with arbitrary rules. Sensitivity, once punished or misunderstood in school, becomes a superpower that enhances their judgment, influence, and capacity to navigate complexity. In truth, their disengagement is not absence, it is preparation. They are building a foundation of resilience, insight, and self-protection that will serve them in every arena where superficial measures of achievement are irrelevant. Recognizing and honoring energy in themselves and others allows them to operate on levels of influence and understanding inaccessible to those who only see the tangible and measurable. They had purpose, not grades on their spirit. Chosen women are inherently driven by purpose rather than external validation. Their inner compass is aligned with a destiny that transcends curriculum, assignments, and standardized tests. While peers may invest immense effort in achieving high grades, these women instinctively recognize the distinction between temporary approval and long-term impact. For them, school may feel monotonous, irrelevant, or even constraining because it fails to connect with their higher calling. Their education is guided by an inner quest to understand themselves, their potential, and the ways they can influence the world meaningfully. Their focus is on mastery, insight, and the cultivation of qualities that serve a greater vision. Even in subjects that appear mundane or irrelevant, they unconsciously seek patterns, meaning, and applications that will serve larger purposes. This divergence from the conventional path often leads teachers and peers to misunderstand their abilities, labeling them as unmotivated or disengaged. In reality, these women are prioritizing alignment with their own trajectory over conformity to external expectations. Purpose is a form of energy. It dictates where attention is allocated, what risks are worth taking, and which skills are worth cultivating. Chosen women direct their energy toward knowledge, experiences, and connections that resonate with their calling. While grades measure conformity, purpose measures alignment, impact, and growth. This intrinsic orientation cultivates resilience, foresight, and discernment. Life rewards alignment with purpose far more consistently than adherence to rules. Those who focus solely on external markers often find themselves successful by society's standards but unfulfilled in essence. Chosen women, by contrast, learn early to prioritize internal validation and long-term impact over temporary recognition. They are attuned to their strengths, aware of their responsibilities, and committed to cultivating influence in ways that matter. Over time, this orientation leads them to positions of leadership, creativity, and transformation. Their destiny requires wisdom, emotional intelligence, and strategic insight, which cannot be measured by a report card. Grades may be incidental, they are not the goal. What school misreads as apathy is actually the calibration of energy toward meaningful, soul-aligned objectives. Chosen women carry within them a spark of divine purpose, a blueprint for impact that cannot be forced into conventional systems. Their spirit seeks contribution, influence, and creation beyond the classroom walls. Their intelligence was hidden, not absent. The intelligence of chosen women is often subtle, latent, and misaligned with conventional measures of intellect. Standard schooling rewards immediate recall, speed, and conformity. Chosen women, however, operate on a timeline that favors depth, reflection, and integration. Their brilliance may not manifest in the first years of schooling or in test scores that favor memorization. It often emerges later, shaped by experience, adversity, and introspection. Life, rather than exams, becomes the crucible in which their intelligence is refined. As they navigate complex social, professional, and emotional landscapes, their understanding of human behavior, strategy, and abstract systems deepens. Observers may have once underestimated them, but time reveals their capacity to think critically, perceive subtly, and synthesize knowledge in ways that surpass conventional markers. Intelligence is not only measured in what they know, but in how they apply it. Their foresight, adaptability, emotional acuity, and strategic thinking are unparalleled. This delayed flowering often surprises those who once dismissed them. The world rewards experience, creativity, and vision, and chosen women bring these qualities in abundance. By adolescence, their brilliance may be hidden under layers of withdrawal, sensitivity, or unconventional thinking, but with maturity, it becomes a force of guidance, insight, and transformation. These women are often drawn to leadership, mentorship, and innovation, using their intelligence to influence, heal, and create systems that are both effective and humane. What was invisible to teachers becomes visible in life, proving that intelligence is not solely a function of standardized measures, but a reflection of adaptability, insight, and alignment with higher truths. If this message found you at the right time, it is not by accident. You were never lazy, you were layered, you were never slow, you were searching. This is the Woman of Light channel. If this video spoke to your soul, don't forget to subscribe for more messages meant for chosen women walking this path of awakening. And if you received this message exactly when you needed it most, type 11 in the comment section as a sign of alignment and divine blessing. Your journey was never about grades, it was about greatness. Thank you for watching.